What's up, everyone? Welcome to On Deck with my old podcast co-host, Mr. Tommy Rowlands. Tommy, what's going on?
What's up, my brother? It's been too long. It's been, I don't know, what has it been, 2 or 3 years since we've wrapped on a podcast?
I think hasn't only been a year and a half? Has it been 2.5?
I don't even know.
Well,
it's been a long time.
I feel like I started with Matt in September, so I feel like it's either been a year and a half or 2.5 years.
I'll be honest with you. However long it's been, I really, really miss it. And there's really been there was a perfect excuse to stop our podcast because I couldn't put in the time that I should have been willing to put in with you. But there's really been no excuse that I haven't been able to do a one-off with you since we stopped.
Yeah.
And so this is long overdue. I tweeted about it to somebody actually over the weekend because the more bored I get with this crisis, the more I find myself commenting on Twitter. And so I'm excited to get on here with you and have some good discussions.
Yeah, you know what? One of the things I think back to a start of because this was the start of my podcasting. Now I do all kinds of podcasting, but the first podcast I ever did was our podcast, T-Row and Funky. And I always think about, all these athletes that people want, they always want to get paid what they're worth, right? And I think there's a balance because you don't want to be taken advantage of, but at the same time, sometimes you just got to do some shit because you want to do something. And, you and I were on the phone one day, and I don't even recall what we were talking about at the time. And I think you said, hey, I want to do a podcast. I said, well, I want to do a podcast. Okay, let's do a podcast. And that was literally
how we just become best friends. That's kind of how it went.
And then we did 120 episodes, so it wasn't like
it was awesome.
We said, well, we'll get started when someone pays us. It was just like, nah, let's just get started. So
it was a great time. I'll always have it as a good memory, and I hope that I'm sitting on a Mac desktop now, which I've never had, and it's like this is so easy to log in right now and rant and rave with you. Obviously, well, we have a brand that we're both a part of in our own ways that, hey, let's get on and talk every now and again and share some thoughts.
Absolutely. So you're going to be a frequent contributor to the On Deck podcast from now on.
Okay, I'm in.
Maybe at least once a quarter, I think it'd be a fair time commitment, whenever you get the time. So the first thing I want to bring up is something I want to say you and I, we were way ahead of it. The other thing you and I were way ahead of is Trump winning the election. We were like
so I was funny. I work with Mike Pasillo every day, and
he was tweeting at me the other day.
Yes, you were in front of Trump. I was not in front of Trump. I became a Trump fan and supporter, but you were in front of it. But Mike Pasillo, who's I wouldn't say he's an outspoken liberal, but he has a liberal ideology, probably more so than conservative.
Yeah, he's
asked you twice, and you have been unresponsive to. You said you called it in 2015. Are you calling it now? It's the dog days of Trump's presidency.
I didn't respond to him. Tell him I say sorry. Mike Pasillo, hell of a wrestler. Dude. Tommy, you wouldn't lose to Joe Biden. I mean, that guy can hardly put a sentence together. I mean, listen, here's what I tell my wife, Tommy. He puts out these videos, and you're like, ooh, what was he saying there? And I tell my wife, okay, here's the fascinating thing about it. It wasn't live. It was taped. That was his best take. Like, they had a freaking script. He got to read it 20 times. That was his best take, and it was that bad. Like, can you imagine?
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine. And this whole, if there even are debates, I mean, who knows what we're going to be dealing with in the fall. But if there are debates, there'll be nothing short of entertaining for sure. So
I genuinely think they're going to replace him. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I just don't think there's any way they can leave Joe Biden in until November. I think. And listen, I like Trump, but he does some really dumb things, which is obviously easy to admit because we both see it. So I got to assume that the Democrats can come up with someone better than Joe Biden because he's just terrible.
Could you also see a third person emerging because of the volatility in both candidates and what's going on?
Well, you know the one who would actually be good, and he had what?
Gibbon?
Yeah. He would. He'd be good.
Dude, he'd be great. He would be great.
So he admitted last week on a podcast I follow, Anthony Pompliano, he admitted that he wants to do it, but his family is pulling him back and not letting him do that. And
Right.
yeah, and what was awesome about the podcast is he said, I wouldn't fill my cabinet with Democrats or Republicans. I would just get the best person. I would be looking for outsiders. I'd be looking for business people. I'd look for whoever was the best person to do the job. And I just loved that.
I like Cuban a lot. What's funny is I got to ask you a question. So we haven't spoken about this, but you have been a vocal supporter of Andrew Yang, in the past couple months. I can't really describe it, but I follow you enough to know that you've been a supporter of his in one way, shape, or form. And I can't tell if you are for, against, or what on what universal basic income would look like, right?
Yeah.
But we are experiencing UBI right now.
We are, yeah. It's fascinating.
We are experiencing UBI. Now, I don't want to sensationalize it and act like I understand the full complexity of what Andrew Yang thinks UBI should be and the present day UBI.
Yeah.
But even though what we're doing is needed, it's necessary, we need the injection into society to keep things liquid, all that stuff. I can't imagine doing this every month perpetually, which is by and large what UBI is. And so I don't want to take the whole podcast to talk about it, but I mean this is UBI.
Yeah.
What we're doing is UBI. And it's like, it's certainly better than a depression, which is what we would have if we didn't have what we're doing right now. But at the same time, you're going to run into inflation. You're going to run into a lot of issues if you were to do this perpetually. So what do you like about Andrew Yang's UBI versus what intuitively doesn't make sense right now?
Well, I don't necessarily. I guess why I liked Andrew Yang, and I didn't say specifically I was a fan of UBI, and frankly,
That's fair enough.
I'm not smart enough to fully understand all the things around it. I do wish I took more finance classes and that stuff in college, which I took none of. So I think what Andrew Yang would say to that, and then I'll tell you why I'm a fan of him. I think he would say that. With everyone losing their jobs, he would say that a whole bunch of these businesses are going to figure out they could be a whole lot more profitable without a lot of these workers, right? They can streamline things, they can be more efficient, and they can make more money. And he would say that's where the future's headed. The future's headed towards automation, AI, and people are going to be left without a job, and they're going to need to have money. Otherwise, it's going to be a mass lawlessness. I think that's what he would say. I'm not smart enough to make a comment on whether that would really happen. What I did appreciate about him, and this is kind of what I appreciate about Trump, is when I read his book, it wasn't just around straight down party lines. I can't stand politicians like that who just say, well, this is what Republicans are going to say, so I'm going to say this. This is what Democrats are going to say. So I'm going to say this. He just said whatever he thought, and he also wasn't scared to go outside the box and propose novel solutions to what he saw were going to be problems. So I guess that's what I liked.
So I think you and I we're cut from the same cloth, even though we have different views and different things. But I think, I don't think I could ever vote for Andrew Yang when I think about his policies and ideologies. But when I listen to him, when I read about him, when I hear what he has to say, because I do follow the guy, I appreciate him. I feel like, he's part of the melting pot of what makes our society so democratic. And if there's any silver lining in this whole thing is that if you're really watching what our government's doing, good, bad, or indifferent, and I'm not talking about Trump, I'm talking about
everybody.
Federal, state, mobilizing Congress, getting things to move through Congress, public-private partnerships, failing, not failing, even the media, who I hate. It's a completely democratic mobilization, where you don't see that in other countries, especially if you've been to other countries. You don't see that type of process. And so whatever is happening, whether you like it or not, it is democratic. And that gives me peace, regardless of how things are being handled. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah. And I think you said that right. The media, oh man, don't let's get to wrestling for it. I really have to get upset. Oh man, it's just so obvious how they just lie and sensationalize, and if you're really paying attention, it makes you want to pull your hair out.
Speaking of pulling my hair out, because I wanted to bring this up.
We
never did an audio podcast. It's the first audio podcast I've ever done in my life.
You mean video?
Video.
Yes.
And I keep looking at the image of myself, and I'm losing my hair.
It happens. It happens.
And I have this shiny reflection on my giant forehead from these lights up here, and it's making me, I'm a little bit distracted from it.
Well, I think you need to, you're going to do this once a quarter, so you probably need to bring in a professional and get some professional lighting and stuff like that. And then
just wear a hat, maybe, something like that. Or I can just do that.
A hat could work. I think you look pretty good. Are you 40 yet? You got to be close.
39, June 3rd, baby.
39, all right.
I'm going to be 240 at 40. Now, I'm not going to tell you what I weigh right now.
Oh, you're gonna weigh. You're getting on a diet.
I'm going to weigh 240 at 40. And I also have a body fat percentage goal. But until then, I'm just going to kind of taper until it gets closer to the D-Day of age 40.
Well,
so,
I'm 30. I'm only 35.
Only 35.
Yeah, I was younger for my high school age, but all my weight goes right between the upper ribs and my waistline. So when I'm wearing a t-shirt, especially, do you see this t-shirt? This is my favorite RUDIS t-shirt.
I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't seen this one? This is my favorite one.
I got this Livebox shirt on.
Okay, so when people see me in a t-shirt, they can't tell that I gained some weight because it doesn't go to my shoulders or my face or anywhere else. So it's fantastic. Good. So let's get into the second part of our second part of our propheticness. We called Spencer Lee being the resurrection of the Iowa program. So now that you've got 2 years to watch that play out, how do you feel about calling that? You called that after his freshman year. You said that was going to happen. We both said that was going to happen. How do you feel about watching it play out?
I mean, I think we were dead on. And, he revived the program. I think that, obviously he's a killer on the mat. He, does a lot of winning. He was all but going to win his third title. But, I think more than that is that he got Iowa out of either a perceived image or an actual image. And, the program has, and whether it's true or not, they now have smiles on their faces. They're more colorful. They're more authentic about how they describe things. It's not as reserved. And there's just a real personal element to the entire program.
Yeah.
And it's like you're talking about Spencer Lee. I mean, this kid was a true freshman coming out to Pokemon for the NCAA Finals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, I feel like his presence in the program has perpetuated a different image from the inside out of their program. And so that's part of it. The other part is just he was born to win. He's a winner on day one. And, the program has fed off that. They've had good athletes, good wrestlers, well-accomplished, Alex Marinelli, Kemmerer, the list goes on. And it's just starting to feed itself like any great program does. And so you see Iowa just being a little bit more thorny, a little bit more in contention for national titles. Even when Spencer Lee leaves, you kind of feel like the thing is propelling in a different direction than perhaps it was 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I feel we felt that. I still feel that it's happening. I feel like when you watch their team compete, it's a different feel than it was. When
excited.
Yeah,
excited. They're excited for each other. They're excited to be out there. Their attack rates are higher.
That's one of the things you texted me this year. Yeah. We're in a couple group texts, and you said, they used to just push, and now they actually wrestle. They actually score points. All of their guys, pretty much across the board. There's a few maybe they don't fit the bill, but they're pretty much all offensive.
Yep, I'm with you. So this is amazing coming from you, especially of all people.
I try to be fair and balanced.
I haven't got to listen to you on FRL or on the RUDIS stuff, so I don't know what you've said lately about Iowa. But back in our day, it wasn't sunshine and rainbows when you talked about it.
I mean, I don't think they're all. Obviously, Warner has a tendency to push. Caleb Young sometimes. But, pretty much besides that, sometimes Marinelli in a few of the bigger matches. But if you look, I mean, DeSanto, lots of points. Spencer Lee, lots of points. Muir is probably one of the less offensive guys. Lugo usually scores quite a few points. Kemmerer obviously scores a huge amount of points. And so, I mean, kind of across the board, they're way more offensive than they used to be. And there's a different feel. And now I'm fascinated by this team competition next year is – Iowa brings everybody back. Michael Kemmerer just got his 6th year this morning. So he's confirmed.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. But now, Michigan brings 3 guys out of Olympic red shirt. They're having a really good team. Penn State is they're kind of going to be hurting because they lose their seniors, Hall and Joseph. But then you also have Cornell bringing Yanni back, Vito back, Max Dean back. They're going to have a really good team. So I think, this year for me, the team race, Iowa was just that much better than everybody. They were far and away. This next year's going to be fun.
Even though it will be fun. That's a good word for it. Especially with Michigan and Cornell. Really, I don't even know I don't follow it as much as I'd like to say to know how the points are going to work out, like all the prognosticators. But I still think Iowa's the team next year.
Oh yeah.
I still think maybe that's like an obvious thing if you're paying really close attention, but I just feel like they're still the squad.
Yeah,
especially with Kemmerer coming back.
Yeah, he was. I guess he would have been the number 2 seed, but he had a decent chance to win a national title, and he always scores lots of points. And he'll be back. And obviously, I don't know where Miles Amin from Michigan. He was kind of always the third wheel with Hall and Valencia, and then he's had a lot of success. But he's been all the way up at 86 kilograms for the hell damn countries he wrestles for. You got RUDIS should sponsor San Marino. I think that's what country it is.
That's great.
How do you feel about that? We never discussed that, so that was not on my list of stuff to bring up. But how do you feel about these guys wrestling for other countries?
I don't like it. I'm not going to go Thomas Gilman on the topic and say that it's treason. I don't think that at all. I do think it's counter to at least what I believe the Olympic spirit is, in that you want to represent the country that you truly feel that you're a representative of. I mean, I know there's lots of people that have dual citizenship for good reasons, but if there's not a connection to that country and there's not I don't know why you would want to represent it. To each their own. I'm not going DEFCON 1 on my opinion on the matter. It's been getting done since the USSR split in the 90s. So it's been going on for decades, and America is just now getting kind of hip to the whole concept of that. I don't personally like it. I mean, I actually had opportunities to represent.
You got recruited?
No, not recruited. It was just more like people that had nothing to do with wrestling, but supported me. Said, "Hey, we can get you connected with a Caribbean country."
Really?
Yeah, just go that route.
But you were the world team member in 06 and 07, right?
Just 07.
Just 06, not 06. Who was 06? Was it Mako?
06 was Tolly Thompson.
Oh, okay.
He got the bronze. 06 was my first year back at heavyweight because I went 211.
Oh, yeah.
And then so anyways, it was talked about, and people, basically it was like, we can do that. And I was like, I want to wrestle for the U.S. or not at all. So that's kind of my take on it, but I don't want to impose that belief on these guys and say, hey, what you're not doing is right. It's just something that I wouldn't go down that road.
Yeah. Hey, total sidebar. Throwing a monkey wrench at you right now. Because I just heard my kids yelling, and I'm hoping they don't come back here. Because I built a door, and they figured out how to unlock it.
I like your setup. It looks impressive, by the way. Nice.
Thanks. Dude, so do you how many days a week do you stay home during the quarantine, or does your wife have all the kids? Because I got to imagine your boys all day at home. Ooh, that's a workout.
Dude, they're insane. So first of all, as you know, I'm the vice president of sales for a produce company, and I also kind of facilitate the manage of a third-party logistics company. Both of those industries or businesses are essential businesses. So we don't have all of our people in the office, but enough to where I feel the need to be in the office. Plus, I just work better in an office setting. Yeah. So I've been going to work every day.
Ooh.
So my which, quite honestly is probably better than being at home all day. Just to answer the question, my boys are sending my wife absolutely insane. They're losing their minds. They're sending my daughter insane too. So I got
How old is she? 13 now or 12?
My daughter's 13, and then Tommy is 10, and then twin boys are 8. And the wrestling season ended abruptly because our youth state tournament was going to 10 days.
Yeah, same.
10 days after they announced the Corona thing, so the season just ended.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, we're not going to work out. Season's over. It's time for baseball or soccer. So it's been 3 or 4 weeks now, and I'm working them out to get energy out of them for my wife. So I've been taking them down to the basement. We got mats, and I try to make it work. I don't want them to feel like it's training because they're young kids and it's April. But we got the soup plate dummy, and we're doing throws and stuff like that. I'm just trying to get some energy out of them. But they're losing their minds, man. It's just wow. What about you? How are you doing in quarantine?
Well, I'm home every day, right? My wrestling academies are closed, and so we have 7, 4, and 2 right now. Your twins they have just so high energy that's why my oldest one's high energy. My middle one is kind of a little more calm. My 2-year-old is very, very demanding. Always wants to do something. Go, 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 go. And
I know somebody like that.
Seriously, right? Yeah.
That's cool, man.
No,
she hanging in there.
Hanging in there, but it does, dude. To your point where you say you work better from work. Yeah, I get it. It's freaking so hard to get stuff done when they won't stop badgering you.
I do, for sure.
Okay, so next topic that was on the list. We've been all over the place so far, though. I'm assuming by your comments on Twitter that you watched the Dake Burroughs shenanigans that I got going.
I did. I think you did Burroughs dirty, man. I don't.
That's fair.
Anyways. Yeah. What do you mean? What do I think of it?
Well, I mean, so I believe from your Twitter comments. So, okay, so let's just break it down. So here we did a hypothetical. We're bored, right? There's no wrestling on. I said, let's do a hypothetical tournament. And so I had Dake winning 2-1 on a riding time point. Brecky had Dake winning. Piles had Burroughs winning, and the fans also had Dake winning. So it was actually 3-1 in favor of Kyle Dake. Jordan Burroughs didn't like that. He says, let me come on and argue my case. I say, well, he's going to be very compelling, and he can make a very compelling case.
Ambush. You didn't ambush.
It's not fair unless we have both people.
It's just you ambushed him. And dude.
So who do you take in that match? Let's hear who you take.
All right. So if you saw my tweets, I take Burroughs.
Okay.
And I mean, we're splitting hairs here. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Point of the contest or the hypotheticals, but I think that much like Jordan Burroughs' international career, we just look at the body of work, and it's like you look at a guy that won the Worlds one time. Let's say we have a guy that wins the Worlds one time in 2026 and set in 5 years or whatever. We're never going to say that him in that year could have beat Burroughs in his best year, because you look at Burroughs' body of work and it's like, I'm never going to say that a one-time champ in the world at the world level can beat Jordan Burroughs and everything that he did. I think it's reverse in college. People are taking a look at Kyle Dake's 4 NCAA titles in a row, 4 different weight classes, never redshirted, beat David Taylor, who's arguably one of the top 3, 4, 5 college wrestlers ever.
Yep.
He beat him 3 times. And when you add all that up, there's no way that Jordan Burroughs could beat him. But I'm trying to separate the legacy and the fanfare and everything that came with Kyle Dake's phenomenal collegiate career and look at Burroughs, which was also phenomenal, but just not quite as much shine on his collegiate career as Kyle's. And I'm looking at what Burroughs did his senior year versus Dake in 2013. And Burroughs is 36-0, 3 regular decisions. He piss-pounded everybody that he wrestled. And then as we're splitting hairs, even though it's not reflective of an NCAA season, 6 months later, he takes virtually the same skill set and wins the world championships unprecedented without any real true freestyle background.
Yeah.
And he wins with folk style skill sets. So I think that takes the cake over Dake. Really, the only thing I could say that would make that match close is the fact that Dake could get riding time on Burroughs.
Yeah.
But I think every other facet of wrestling in a folk style match at that time, Burroughs that year, I mean, he proved that he was well above the competition. And so it's not obvious to me, but it's not obvious that Burroughs would win, but it is obvious whose season and year I would rather have in terms of dominant fashion and all that.
Ooh, really?
Yeah,
but Dake. Okay, ooh, that's a tough. So I agree with everything you said, except that last statement, because Dake beating David Taylor, who's one of 4 two-time Hodge winners ever, 3 times in a row. I mean, I feel like, Oof, that's like a really good,
I guess
you know.
I mean, and I would expect the same thing from you, Ben. But I mean, I can remove the fanfare. I can remove the fandom. I can remove
But how do you say beating someone that good 3 times?
that good? What he was David Taylor at that time, not David Taylor now.
Yeah,
David,
at that time.
At that time was a phenomenal age group level wrestler at the collegiate level.
Yeah,
phenomenal, right? And so David Taylor at that time, you know, it was good, but it's like that's the level they were wrestling at. So all Dake did was beat someone that was also really good.
Yeah.
To me, the tiebreaker for me
is the world championship.
The world championship.
That's fair.
And I mean, he won the world. I mean, he won the worlds. What else? Yeah. What else can you say?
Yeah, so that is definitely a fair argument. I mean, the one thing I was just explaining some of the days, like, okay, number 1 is the hypothetical tournament. Number 2, we had to pick somebody. Number 3, if you say out of 10 matches, how many are they each going to win? You know, I might go 5-5. I might go Dake 6-4. But it's going to be really close. And in a folk style match, both those guys are going to win a decent amount of matches out of 10. You're not going to take Burroughs 10 out of 10, are you?
I'm saying no, not 10 out of 10. I mean, maybe 7 out of 8. Maybe 7 out of 8 because that's what's actually happened. It's not folk style, but you know what I mean. That's the score between the two of those guys. Yeah. Not folk style. I understand how that could be argued, but you know. I think that if Kyle Dake can ride Burroughs out to at the start of a period all the way to the end, it's a 5-5 proposition.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I don't see that happening with Jordan Burroughs. I mean, we're talking about a guy that found lots of ways to defy the odds. I feel like if you put him underneath Kyle Dake for 2 minutes, you know, he's getting out, and I would even wager to say that he's probably not giving up riding time. But I think he's getting out. I don't think he's getting held down for the whole period. Yeah. That's my take. I think that's the only way Dake wins.
Okay. Good one. I like it.
You're taking Dake.
Man, it's like you said, it's like splitting hairs. And the thing that I thought was the most interesting, as pertaining to the specific match, which neither Dake nor Burroughs stayed on topic very, very frequently in the episode, was that the omission that Jordan Burroughs said I wouldn't have chose bottom. So that makes it interesting to me because I don't think he can ride Dake at all, which means...
I think that's because he's assuming he's getting the first period takedown, which if he does, then it makes sense to not go down.
But he's still going to have to get multiple takedowns, right? Because, you know, if Dake will choose bottom, he'll get his escape. He'll get an escape if he gets taken down, which makes it 2-2, which means he needs another takedown. And then obviously then you go to the other side. Well, if Dake gets a takedown and he rides for a while, he's got the takedown plus the ride time point. So, you know, I think Burroughs so obviously I picked before I heard him talk, and then when he said, well, I'm not choosing bottom, he obviously shows a little bit of, okay, well, number 1, it is strategy, but number 2, there is I don't want to say a nervousness or a certain level of respect for Kyle Dake's top game, which maybe that's smart, but at the same time, that is a little bit worrisome.
Yeah. You know, that was an interesting little FRL session you had there, man. That was quite the ambush you put on JB, dude. Come on, Ben.
Oh, that was so funny. I had so much fun. Listen, think about this, Tommy. At the same time as I've accomplished some things and whatever, I just love wrestling, and I'm a wrestling fan when it comes down to it. So think about this. I got to get 2 of the greatest people ever at the sport of wrestling in America on the computer at the same time, and I got to sit here, drink some coffee, and listen to them bicker. I mean, I couldn't have thought anything more enjoyable for myself if I tried.
You sabotage. I mean, I could get you know, if I put my mind to it, I can get, you know, John Smith and Sarkeesian on Skype.
You think? You think?
If I could use manipulation to do it, yeah, I could do it.
Really? Let's do that. That's such a bad idea.
You take Sarkeesian, I'll take Smith.
I don't know Sarkeesian. Well, did Bela Glazov, we have a connection there. Did he ever wrestle? He did wrestle John Smith one time, right?
It was a feature match in Pittsburgh. It was an awesome match. Have you seen it on YouTube?
I believe I have. Yeah,
it's unfair, though, because Bela Glazov was on the downside of his career. He's a weight class below.
Smaller, yeah.
Wrestling in the United States. He must have got paid a fortune to do that.
Yeah.
So it's phenomenal wrestling, and Smith was the better wrestler clearly in that match. But you can't. I mean, that was like literally like. I mean, Smith was up or no, Smith's going up and once his head's going down, it's like
and in different weight class, it's kind of a big deal.
All that. Especially at the lightweights.
Yeah. The other one who I was like, I don't think we could ever get them to agree to come on at the same time, but. Dude, if I could sit back and drink coffee and watch David Taylor and Jaden Cox go at it, oh my God, that would be. They got heat.
All you do is trick one of them, Ben. I mean, you got the formula. All you got to do is trick one of them. You got the formula.
I need to make another hypothetical tournament.
Right.
Good. Seriously. Okay, let's go. Next question. This is gonna be a tough one for you, Tommy. So if you are a college head coach. And your season, the season, what happens this season happens. What are you saying to your athletes? How are you consoling them? What are you doing? It's such a tough situation because it's not like, okay, tomorrow we'll get back after it. It's like, okay, we're done, and I can't even have practice or see any of you guys for months.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, you're exactly right. I don't know what I would say, but. Hindsight's 2020. Obviously, like everyone else, I've had time to really think about this, and it's just life's not fair, and so unfortunately, these guys are getting a very, very, very high concentrate dose of that reality. Yeah. And if I was their mentor or their coach, I'd be saying, "Hey, this has always been true. It always will be true going forward, and." Nothing changes the process, the journey, the goals that you set, what it has made you to this point. And you can either take this situation and use it the same way that you've used other unfortunate setbacks in your life and find the positive in it, or you can be better the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And so this is a very unfair dose of the reality of how sometimes life works. And it's brutal. I mean, I wouldn't know how to really approach it. I mean, I had, less than 1% of that type of conversation with 10 and 8-year-old boys about their state tournament. And, this is like their situation divided by 1,000 is what I'm talking to my kids about. And I tried to explain that to them, and, they were over it pretty quick because they're little kids and it's not something their life depends on. But you just imagine. Yeah. What these guys are doing. I mean, I'm thinking a lot of us. You're in business. You're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. And I'm thinking about what I'm personally going through and trying to reconcile things with employees and keeping the peace and keeping people excited and motivated and having to make tough decisions and do all those types of things. And every time I feel a little bit sorry for myself, it's like it's nothing compared to what these guys had to deal with when their NCAA tournament ended, because, it's one thing to just get tough and get through a situation and like we're doing in business right now, which I think is what most people are doing. Mm-hmm. And it's another thing to just have the rug swiped from underneath you. And there's no chance to bring it back. There's no chance to run it back, so to speak, especially for these seniors. And it's tough. You know what I mean? It's tough, and especially at their age, but you just got to learn how to find ways to make your life better because of it, right? And so that's what I'd share with those guys. Not to get too sentimental, but I mean that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, it's a sentiment. I think it's a sentimental thing. I mean, there are guys. There's a lot of guys who are never going to have closure on that portion of their lives, right? And even if the guy, obviously some of the seniors will never wrestle again. Some of them will go wrestle internationally, but even if they do go wrestle internationally, there's still going to be that thing that was right there. That, I mean, we had the brackets, Tommy. We were that close. I mean, and they're never gonna have closure on that. So yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly difficult thing for them. And yeah, I mean, I've been trying to think of what the redeeming factors can be from that, and it's like, shoot, it's hard. It's hard to think of any.
I mean, I think when you fail, you're able to, if your thoughts are properly formed, you're able to reconcile the project as like, hey, I went for it. It didn't happen for me. I had control of my destiny, and it didn't work out. And there it is. And you build yourself back up, and you become a better person for it. I think the difficult thing about this it's kind of like an injury almost.
Yeah.
It's like a catastrophic injury for everybody. It's like you didn't fail.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You didn't fail.
Yeah.
You didn't fail. It just didn't happen.
Yep.
And so that's where, you've got to really be a mentally strong person with properly formed thoughts, surrounded by good people that can help keep you patched together for however long it takes, so that you can kind of take this experience and make yourself better. And so the good programs and the kids that were raised by good families or have a good support group, I should say, hopefully they have that, because there's going to be some kids that just don't do well with this. You know what I mean? There's just, and that's sad, but there's going to be some people that just don't do well with this.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree, man.
Yeah. It's kind of depressing. Why'd you bring that up?
Well, it's obviously, it's right in our face. It's what's happened.
Of course.
I think I value.
So what would you say to your guys?
I mean, like I said, I've been trying to think of what redeeming thing you're right. Because like you said, when someone fails, it's like, what can I pull out of this that you didn't like, but I can give this to you, and then you can move forward. It can make you better in the future. Right. I mean, that's kind of how I think about failure. And I've been trying to think what I would pull out of it. And it's like, what is there? There's nothing to pull out of it. It's just bad shit happens sometimes. You don't have control of it. And that's just how the world works. I mean, honestly, to say to myself, that's kind of what I feel like about my Masvidal fight. It's like, listen, dude, I feel like I trained right. Everything was doing right. And what do I take from that loss? Nothing. It lasted 5 seconds. I don't take anything from it. So it's like, it's one of those things where bad things just happen in life sometimes when you don't deserve them. And so, I mean, I guess if anything I would say is those guys who are able to find a purpose and bounce back and go to something else, the faster they're able to do that, the better. Right. And
I think it's very well said. And personal talk about the fight too, but it's a good comparison. I think the biggest thing that this should teach people that didn't have to go through that, maybe my kids, my sons that are real young, and we talk about, hey, remember the coronavirus year when all the NCAA guys and even some of these high school kids too, they're affected by it. It's like, you better not hitch your wagon to only the outcome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the outcome is going to be the outcome. So, without a potential outcome where there's success or failure, none of it really means anything. It doesn't have much gravity. You really don't feel like anything's on the line. So you got to hitch your wagon a little bit to the outcome. It's got to be there. It's got to be something that's important to you. But if you're not appreciating everything else in that pursuit, things will unravel quickly if you deal with something like what's happened with this crisis. You know what I mean? There's no way to reconcile it. If all you care about is the outcome, how can you unpack what happened? How could you possibly unpack it if that's all that you are attached to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree totally. Okay, last thing we'll just talk about, and I don't know what you have to say about it, or if you want to say anything about it. The Olympics got pushed back a year, which means the Olympic trials were pushed back a year. We were really close to those happening. Also, so I don't know if you want to take it from the view of a competitor, what this would have been like for you getting pushed back a year, or if you want to take it from the angle of who this is going to help, who it's going to hurt. Because I think you have to kind of think about it that way. Like, my number one person to help would be Yanni, right? He had some injuries he was dealing with this year, and so he gets a year to get healthy and a year to get better and older. Whereas
it helps Yanni, it helps Spencer Lee, it helps David Taylor at that weight class, just to get even more healthy. It helps Dake, I think, a little bit.
Especially he's getting younger.
That's true. I don't know what to think of it. I mean, it's just to pause. I can't imagine, I know you obviously trained for the Olympics too, but I can't imagine what it would be like to be weeks outside of the Olympic trials.
Seriously.
And say, we're going to pause this for another year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think about it in 2008 when I was 27 years old. Bummer, stinks, no big deal. I'm going to deal with it. In 2012, I was 30, almost 31. And if you would have said you got another year, it's like, what do you mean? I have enough self-awareness to know that my physical attributes are hanging on by a thread. I mean, I'm still at my peak, but at any minute, I'm not going to be at my physical peak, right? And so I think depending on the point you're at in your career, if you had the advantage and you knew that people were gaining, or if you didn't have the advantage and you knew you had another year to make up ground, I mean, the whole psyche of the whole thing, and these guys aren't going to share that with
they're not
the public, but all those thoughts have entered the mind, right? And how you, process all that, and basically it's just a huge, massive reset. Now we're talking about professional athletes that have put their life in the thing, but it is a massive mental reset that I don't think you do like in 24 hours. I think they're still I think they're still in reset mode. I think Jordan Burroughs is still resetting his mind.
Yeah.
Dake's still, Kyle Snyder, Cox, Taylor, Sajalayev, Sabalov, or whoever is going to beat Chamizo. You name all these animals, they're all resetting their minds and probably getting dates and targets in mind and just starting to reconfigure the whole vision of how things were supposed to be.
Yeah, and so we're seeing obviously like Frank Molinaro just said, I'm done.
Peace.
I'm out, right?
Yeah,
I'm out.
Yeah.
And especially when you think about some of these guys, there's only 6 weight classes in the Olympics, and some of these guys who are cutting really hard to make their weight classes, and some of them were probably counting down the days like, this is my last weigh-in, like 3 more weeks. I'm never gonna make this weight again in my life. I mean, that's how I thought about 74 was brutal for me to make, and so it's like, I'm never going to make this weight in my life. Another year, and then that means they're not going to do no tournaments till next April, right? They're going to do a fall tournament or 2, so it's like, oh, dude, I got to make that weight another 5 times in the next year. Like, oh my God, how am I going to do that? Do I want to do that? Is there something better I should probably go be doing with my life? All those things.
It's just, it's
that's probably like you making 96 kilos, right?
Oh yeah.
It's terrible.
That was tough. I mean, I was training twice a day, 6 days a week to weigh 230.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the thought of doing that just to hold my weight for another year would have been, and there's guys doing that all the time. I mean, I'm not saying that my case was anything unique.
You cut a lot of weight to make 211.
That would have been interesting for sure.
Yeah. Because you made it in 04 and 05, right? Those 2 years? Yeah.
I made it in 04, 05, and 2012.
Oh my gosh, I forgot you went down. Oh wow.
Yeah, I went down. Yeah, so that would have been tough.
Yeah,
for sure.
Seriously. Okay, well, hey, that's gonna be a wrap. Unless you got any last thoughts or you want to ask some questions of me.
Well, so one thing I wanted to talk about or ask or just marinate on is, I think what we're dealing with right now is unique, and I think the psychology of our society staying tough is so important right now. And so I feel like the wrestler's mentality is like almost made for this crisis for a finite period of time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I think about how you got to get through this either as a father, businessman, all the different maybe identities I feel like I have in the world. How are you dealing with all this? I mean, don't you feel like, I mean, I see people around me, and I'm not going to name names, that are just, I see them slowly like crumbling a little bit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mentally. And it's like, dude, come on, man. This is finite. It will pass. I guess, what's your thoughts on all that?
Yeah. So, so number one, I did an interesting, I did a good, right when the quarantine hit, it was a Mental Monday kind of, I did a couple that week, but one was with Gene's Native Wrestling Mindset. And one of the things I thought he was interesting, because I do a lot of goal setting and, planning for getting stuff done. But, one of the things he said was put a number to everything, which I thought that was interesting. And that's probably something people lack the ability to do, because it does hold you to it. But then the other thing I just did my Mental Monday yesterday. Actually, I don't think RUDIS is airing it till next week. So I do mine on Twitter, and then they push it to the next week. But was one of the things I brought up, you'll be able to relate to this really well, is some of these fighters are saying, hey, I can't fight because I need everything to be perfect. I need my training. I need to cut weight, and I need to have my coaches and all this stuff. And it's like, what taught me to not worry about things being perfect? When I went to Russia and I looked at that effing buffet at the hotel, I said, no, I'm just gonna eat the bread and cheese for the whole week because I'm not touching any of the other stuff. And so it's like, you literally went over there. You don't know what you're gonna get: food, sleeping, training, weight cutting. You don't know what any of those things. Bracketing, referees being against you. I remember the first tournament I was in. Second I was in Ukraine. I was winning with 6 seconds left.
Yeah.
And we start wrestling again, and I'm like, okay, surely we've been wrestling for 6 seconds. And I look at the clock and it still says 6 seconds. So then as I turn my attention to the clock and I tell my coach, tell them to start the clock, I got taken down and it was like, okay. So I stood on the mat and I said, no, go back and watch the film. So here's what they did. They rewound it and they said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, we're good. And so, it's like going over those circumstances, not knowing what you're going to get and having to still perform and deal with everything that's going on. I feel like that teaches you a lot. And I only did it, I think 5 times is how many times I went overseas. And I'm sure your number's way bigger than mine. But I think you could probably relate to the uncertainty of going to some of those countries and not knowing what to expect when you get over there.
Yeah, I did the Oregon 6 times. I did work every time I went.
You did the Oregon 6 times?
I did the Oregon 6 times.
Oh, you're a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, I know. I am. And, I mean, that's exactly how it is when you go overseas. The conditions, the accommodations, the food, the officiating, even the tournament schedule is changing. The weight cutting situation is sometimes awful. Yeah. I could go on and on and on. And so, that overseas travel kind of gets you prepped and ready for whatever you can do. I was sitting with Mike Pasillo. Mike Pasillo runs a truck brokerage that I'm a part of, Entourage Freight Solutions. And so it's pretty good sized company now, and he's running it. And we were talking like 2 weeks ago in the office, and he just said, this is just like wrestling season. I said, what do you mean? He said, I wake up, I come to work. It's the same thing every day. There's nothing that exciting about it. But I have to tuck my head. I have to grind it out. I get out of work. I go home. I eat dinner. I watch a TV show or two, and I go to bed, and that's it. You know what I mean? Because your normal way of life is around you is totally compromised. But at least Mike was talking about staying focused on business. It's like, this is just like wrestling season. It's the same thing. And, so like, I think that people who have been around wrestling are able to lock in. Yeah. And basically the overseas travel mentality or it's wrestling season mentality. Just be like, we're just going to go. Yeah. We're just going to go until the sun comes up. Right? And so I think everybody else is like, well, will the sun ever come up? I'm not sure. I mean, maybe we should just, screw it and just eat Oreos and watch TV all day. It's like, dude, you can't do that. We got to stay in a regimen. You know what I mean? Yeah. What's funny is what's going on with this whole crisis, because I'm fascinated by it. Not saying I like it, I hate it, but I'm fascinated by the whole thing because I think what we have is we have 2 primal instincts that are at odds with each other. One is safety, and 2 is freedom, right?
Ooh, that's a good one.
So it's like, if you really want to be 100% safe, you're not really free.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want complete and total freedom, are you really that safe?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so up until a month ago, the balance of freedom and safety in our culture and our society, we liked it, right? It's like, I like having the sense of safety that I have while also exercising the freedom that I have. I can do what I want, whenever I want, and earn a living for myself, however I deem fit. And I'm also protected to a certain degree. And now the coronavirus has thrown that whole balance out of whack. Yeah. And some people are like, I only want my safety. You know what I mean? And other people are, I only want my freedom. Who cares about our safety? And obviously the truth is somewhere in the middle. You just got these are just primal biological like needs that we have.
Yeah, seriously.
I want my safety. I want my freedom. You know what I mean? And so they're just colliding right now, and you're watching politicians just politicize the whole thing. Now I'm kind of going, it's like the beginning of the podcast, we're talking politics here, but
I want to finish. Tommy, maybe you and I should start a politics podcast.
Yeah, who are we gonna invite, and then invite his adversary on without him knowing, and just freaking totally bomb the podcast? Huh?
Okay, what if we invited Biden and then we got Trump to call in too? Oh yeah, I mean I don't know. Maybe I can make the statement. We can end it, or if you want to go on, I feel like you and I could discuss this for hours. But there's some people who don't realize that no matter what, tough decisions will be made, right? If we crash the economy, that's going to screw a whole lot of people's lives up. And so the people who are just saying, let's just stay inside and stay hidden until everything's over, it's like, but that's not realistic. That's not how the world works. And I think you can start back, and that doesn't mean you start back and have a big party and everyone does whatever the hell they want. It means we can be disciplined and we can, have some rules and regulations about how we're going to restart. But we do have to restart. And so, you described, I haven't thought about that balance, but you described it perfectly, the balance between, safety and freedom. And we have to balance that properly. We can't have too much safety and we can't have too much freedom. We got to balance those things properly.
Yep. I'm with you, man. And I could talk about that all day long for sure. But yeah, maybe we'll end it so we can just cut it off for 60 minutes.
All right, that sounds good. It was fun catching up.
I'm ready. I got my headphones. I'm locked in. I got my Skype on my desktop. I'm ready to rock. We'll be doing one more one-offs.
Once a quarter. I got you locked in for once a quarter now. So 4 times a year, get you on here. I appreciate it, Tommy. Have a great night.
Good to talk to you. We'll see you.
Peace. See ya.